We are all story makers of our own lives. We create our own narratives, goals, success, and failure. Our stories have a start, but it also has endless possibilities of remolding it at any given point of time. But what influences our decision? Over the years, at Cubic, along with working with brands, we have also been exposed to accomplished individuals and their stories. And if we look for one common point, it is the belief in themselves that makes them successful. In the Story Makers Uncubed series, we speak to individuals from diverse backgrounds, lawyers, sportsmen, mythologists, entrepreneurs, and look into their narratives of their stories and the grit behind it. First of the many, we speak to Devdutt Pattanaik, a mythologist and a motivational speaker who single-handedly has brought back the love of mythology into many of our lives. With him, we go back in time and explore the definition of success and failure. We also speak to him about a very important topic, women empowerment and the history of it.
Devdutt, thank you for giving us your time. One of the questions that I'd like to ask is, we work a lot with entrepreneurs at Cubic. And when they start a business, they are giving up stability for uncertainty. Do they follow their dharma, which is looking after their responsibilities, or do they follow their dreams and their karma and move towards a startup which has so much of uncertainty? What do you think about this?
See, when you're getting into business, ultimately business is about providing goods and services to the market. Let's first clarify that. Many businessmen don't know what business is. It's not extraction. You're not extracting wealth from the market. You are giving goods and services in exchange for which you are getting a reward. In order to make you do that, you have a whole bunch of people who work with you. And every one of them is giving you something in order to get something. Now, once you're aware of this transaction, which is there at every level of your interaction, you start thinking dharma. And that's what dharma is about. Am I, is the input and output matched? And when you're hiring people in a startup, you are telling them that, we'll work long hours, and that is why you get that higher salary, because we don't know where we are going. It's a new journey. The ship is in the middle of the ocean. We don't know if there will be storms. And so people joining you right at the beginning know what to expect. It's not a stable ecosystem. It's an unstable ecosystem. And in an unstable ecosystem, you are managing and mitigating risks, and therefore you get that extra payment that usually startups offer. With the guarantee, there is no guarantee, right? 1 year later, you may not have a job. And I think one should be very clear about this, that we're entering on a journey, and make sure that those who are working for you are not going to benefit from the success, all the benefits. They're not all getting ESOPs, right? They're not all getting shares of the company. You are getting the shares of the company. So they don't have to take the uncertainty that you are going through. You may be the great martyr suffering, but at the end of the day, you are the one who's going to make the $1 million. They won't. Your peon won't. Your housekeeping staff won't. Your clerical staff won't. So be aware of this balance that yes, you're giving goods and services to the market, but they are also giving you goods and services in order for you to become the next billionaire. So and so once you understand this ecosystem, you are functioning better. And dharma is about feeding other people. It's about feeding other people and feeding yourself by feeding other people. I use the word eating and feeding. Most people think business is about extraction. It's about me eating. And you're doing me a favor. Everybody exists so that I'll eat. What I call the Bakasura syndrome, where you're like a Bakasura, you're only eating. But really that's not dharma. Dharma is about feeding people and being fed by them. So it's a cycle. You create this cycle. And I think startups need to remind themselves that they're part of a cyclical ecosystem.
So once you start the business and you're, let's say, 3 years into it, and things change. Your scale changes, employee changes, maybe even the product changes. You have VC money. And now you have complexities. Suddenly what you thought was right and wrong seem different now. What was success and failure seems different now. So the question here is, are the definitions of success and failure or right and wrong fixed, or do they change?
So right and wrong does not exist in business unless you're dealing with ethical and moral issues. Decisions that you're taking have consequences. Every decision has a consequence. And Indian thought looks at the world in fact in Indian thought they don't even use words like morality and ethics. They just say every action has consequences. You won't get away with things. There are things that people will stand up to you and all that. So you have to understand that as your organization grows, as you hire more and more people, you have to ask yourself, what are the habits I'm going to let go? What are the habits I'm going to let go? Many startup people, what happens is they think that they're going to behave exactly the way they did when they started the company. It doesn't work like that. When you're working with 10 people, you have to be a different person. When you're working with 100 people, you're a different person. When you're not answerable to anyone, you're a very different person. When you're answerable to someone else, you're a different person. And therefore, your behavior will change, your choices will change, your decisions will change. And you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why? And it's not about is it right. There is no benchmark out there of what is right, because you are in a startup, which means nobody has gone on the journey that you are going on. It's a new road. You're doing something which nobody has done before, and therefore you figure it out. What happens somewhere along the line is people in leadership positions aren't able to handle the stress, and they start pushing it down the throats of the employees. Cost cutting hona hai, so they want the lowest denominator in the organization to suffer the most, because that's easy. Chucking them out is easy, and so greed walks into the picture. And I think those are things that are never talked about, but we know how some of these games are played. How underwriting happens, how mischief happens, and VCs also know that. So it's a complex world out there, because you're always unsure, will it be successful? Will it be successful? There's so much of anxiety. I think there is no definition of success. I think we should focus on what goods and services are you offering the market. And when you know that like for example, because you have VC funding, you start making things ridiculously cheap, or making it because you know that you have extra funding. But remember that funding is not forever. It's a false truth, and it's a false reality. It's not a sustainable reality. You believe that you'll create such a big market that you'll be too big to fail. These are the new terms that are emerging, and these are really meant for thieves. They don't create sustainable businesses. Maybe 3 or 4 people will get away with it. And of course, you will get your visa to UK and USA, and you can run away without paying the bank, which we know people do. Or they pay the government, and they pay politicians to escape, and your loans are written off. But that's not the way you create legacy. I think somewhere along the line glamour takes over, and don't get trapped in the glamour of the startup. Focus on, be the market, go to the market, do what businessmen are supposed to do, give goods and services which are of value, for which the market will reward you, and you will take, and growth may be slow, it's okay, so long as it is sustainable, so long as your balance sheets are clean. And you will get your buyers. You will sell it correctly. I think one has to be very clear about what you can do and what you can't do, and why are you doing it. Many a times they're doing it out of glamour, and decisions are being taken because of glamour. That's not healthy. That the moment the VC funding comes, my car changes. If I was a VC, I'll first check which car you came in, and if your car changes with my funding, I am going to send 3 more people to your office to check, because you seem to be more interested in the car.
One of the challenges is VC, which because we work with entrepreneurs, is the valuation challenge. If a VC has got in, he's also got into exit.
Yeah.
So if you're the slow and stable, you're not the glamorous person, you're not the person that gets written about, then you're also not the person they can sell.
Yes.
So I understand what you're saying, and at the same time, I've seen the pressures that the entrepreneurs face, which is why I asked that what is.
Yeah. So you see, a VC relationship is like a temporary marriage. And if you have decided to get into a temporary marriage where you know a divorce date has been fixed, you must understand who you are marrying. And if they have married you to be glamorous, in those 3 years, you better become glamorous, or do not do the nikah. Because talaq is coming. And that's what a VC funding is about. It's 3 to 5 years max. So go to your venturecapitalshadi.com very carefully. And and if you're in a hurry to get married and you marry the wrong person, well, it'll be a bad marriage. And we all know what happens in a bad marriage. So
very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, because you're very clear. Like when I talk to startup people, I say, okay, who's your customer? And then they'll give me all these ridiculous answers, the market, the customer. I said, no, that's not your customer. Your only customer is the VC, because you want your first round of funding, right? Everything, all the drama, and it's like a dulhan getting ready to prepare, and who is your that groom? Your groom is VC. Your groom is not the ultimate customer. Let's be very cruel about it. I mean, let's accept the reality. Do not try to fool me. You are here to impress VCs. You're not interested in the market. You're doing your little technological wonder because you've come from you're this brilliant guy coming out of these best universities. But really you're a greedy person who wants to make $100 million, right? So call yourself that. It's okay. Don't be ashamed of it. But call yourself what you are. Do not try because Devdutt Pattanaik is standing in front of you that, oh, I'm doing this to serve humanity and uplift humanity, because then you're a politician. And then you will never get Saraswati, because Saraswati is honest. If you want to be making, it's okay. You should know कि हम तवायफ हैं, हम नाचेंगे, हमें पैसे मिलेगा. If you know that, then पत्नी बनना है, then it's a lifelong journey. That's very different. But you're in relationships only for 3 years, 5 years. It's a very different ecosystem that you're existing in. So do not try to expect kind of a loyalty which you expect from a lifelong humsafar with a part-time tawaif. So it's going to work very differently. Now I use this very foul language. It's a very foul language, but ये बाजारू भाषा है. And in English, बाजारू means market.
Right.
Market sounds so much more sophisticated, right? The moment I say bazaar, it sounds so dirty. But then, well, you are in, what is valuation? तुम्हारा तोल मोल होगा. It's like what I say when an intern joins me and he expects me to pay him 8 lakhs or 10 lakhs. And I says, कितना पैसा देगा मेरे को वापस? And they get shocked because you're speaking in English and you're speaking this very proper language. And I'm like, listen, buddy, at the end of the day, you're in the market. Whether I say it in English, French, at the end of the day, how much money are you giving me? Now he gets very nervous. I'm like, but why will I pay you X if you don't give me 3X? It's as simple as that. It's a market. You are giving me services in exchange for which I'm giving you revenue. You're not extracting money out of me. These people keep forgetting what is business. Business is goods and services. In exchange, even a job, you are giving goods and services. Your cook, your cleaner, they are all providing you services in exchange for which you give them money. When they give you good service, you give them more money. When they are in demand, then they will ask you more money. The rules don't change. But if you don't accept that, and you expect your VC to be wonderful father figure who will just give you money because the way your daddy gave you money. No, it's not going to happen, because daddy doesn't ask you ROI, although some daddies do.
This question is something that's very close to our heart, and this is about women empowerment. We've heard your talks where you've talked about Ganga being all powerful, and we've just celebrated Durga Puja. From a place where women are so powerful, today we are, as women, fighting for equal space. How did we lose the narrative, and what can we do to get it back?
See, we should not confuse mythology with day-to-day life, because there are religions in this world where there is no goddess. Does it mean those religions have the freedom not to treat women with dignity? Because there is no goddess. God is seen in a masculine form. The God's messengers are male. And those religions, everybody is male. The priest is male, the prophet is male, the God is male, everything is male. In India and in parts of Japan, you have female deities, but they have different meanings and different spaces and different ways of looking at it. I think the point is, again, to ask yourself the question, when you hire a man or a woman, are you hiring a gender, or are you hiring services? And I always ask this question. There's a very famous story in the Mahabharata where Sulabha meets Janak. Although Janak is a character from Ramayana, the story comes in the Mahabharata. And Sulabha is this very intelligent woman who goes to meet the king Janak, and they're having a conversation on yoga. And in the process, she realizes the king is distracted. He's not paying her attention. And she says, why are you not paying me attention? Why are you not listening to me? He says, no, you're getting into my mind, and you're a woman, and and he kept saying, you're a woman, so I'm not able to pay attention. And she says, I'm here to discuss philosophy. How did my body come into the picture? We are exchanging ideas. I have ideas, you have ideas, we're exchanging ideas. Why can't you focus on my idea? Clearly the subject has not worked so well in you that you can't ignore my body. My body is, you're paying so much of attention to my body, you're forgetting my idea. You have not really achieved yoga. So the point is, when when people start looking at, for me, every employee is a service provider. And you have to be able to look at people as service providers. Their age doesn't matter, their sex doesn't matter, their caste doesn't matter. They're providing you services. There's a set of tasks for which they have to do service. Whether man is doing it, woman is doing it, older person, younger person, beautiful person, ugly person, doesn't matter. There is a set of tasks to be done. I think somewhere along the line we get sort of spellbound by gender. And I think that is something to be avoided, and if you want to be successful, because intelligence will come in any form. The gods come in any form, right? We have all heard the stories of gods coming to your house in the form of a sweeper, or God coming to your... I think when you start looking at your employees as women and men, then there's something wrong with you, because you're hiring them for the services that they provide. A good candidate who is doing well has to be rewarded for the work that they did. And I think that we have to create that ecosystem, and that's a culture that people have to create. That while yes, I'm aware that you're a woman or a man or a gay person or from a marginalized community or a disabled, but the fact is, I don't think a disabled person wants to be treated, if they're providing you services. I worked in a printing press, and there were many disabled people who were handling the phone, operating system, and they were being treated equally. Because they were given jobs that they could do perfectly well, and they were hired for the services that they brought. They were not hired because they were disabled. In fact, the owner said, because they are disabled, in fact it works in their favor, because they're giving me that extra 10% which others wouldn't give me. So I think it depends on how enlightened you are.
So the perspective that you're taking is from the person that hires the people. We are two women that are working in an industry, and we are selling our services, our brains, our experience. What can, irrespective of what is the external environment, what can we do to make ourselves strong?
I think, the way I would approach it, and I don't know whether it's the right approach or wrong approach, but is to focus on the tasks and focus on the targets and focus on the greed of the person in front of you. Because the more self-conscious I am, the more the person in front of notices it. And then they see that as a weakness and they pounce on it. So the more self-conscious, the more comfortable you are, the less the other person sees it as something vulnerable on which they can exploit you. And I think that is something that I have always worked with in myself. For example, if a person is overweight, I tell them, don't be so conscious of your weight, because you're carrying your weight into the room. You're carrying a set of values to the room. You're offering goods and services to that client, not your body. So don't keep thinking, oh, I'm a fat person and all that, and you walk into the room, because the person in front of you starts noticing your fatness because you are projecting it. And I've had obese colleagues and all that. They're very shy because they sweat and they want to. I says, you are there to, because we were in the pharma industry. I would always talk about, we carry negative energies with us. We carry our doubts with us. We carry what we consider weaknesses, but the market may not see them as weaknesses. Market may not even notice them. It is like you have some, a stain on your shirt. But if you keep walking into the room and saying, oh, there's a stain on my shirt, then the whole of bed, everybody starts looking at the stain on the shirt. So I think we have to be agnostic about it, and also prepare that if the person in front of you makes that an issue, clarify that how does it help the services that you deliver. Because you're here to deliver value, you're here to make money for them, and you're here to make money for you. And the bazaar mein jo paisa hota hai, it doesn't have gender. Money has no gender. $1 million in the hand of a man or a woman, if somebody's giving me $1 million, I don't care who that person is.
So one of my clients, who is now a friend, and I remember what he told me, Sangeeta, what have you done today that made me look better in the eyes of my company and my boss? On a daily basis, what have you done that makes me look better?
Yes.
And that's something that I carry with me.
Yeah, because you see, you are in the PR space, you are in the public spaces, and if you're clear about it, that I have to do this, and see, it's a fine line between propaganda and truth, right? It's a very fine line, because politicians keep saying a lot of things and not delivering, and then the hollowness starts to show after some time. But if you have done something good, how do you present it? How do you share it with the world? That's what people want. And that's why we hired, and we hire people for services. And I always tell people, either you sell goods or you sell services. Ideas, but ideas are a form of service, but it's really goods and services. I have learned, when the GST tax we always talk about, and I always say the GS is such an important thing, goods and services. And if you look at the gods, so Durga is wealth, and Saraswati is knowledge, and Lakshmi is wealth, and Durga is power, and so these are things that you exchange. You exchange resources, Lakshmi, you exchange power, you exchange ideas, which is Saraswati, and this is what the market wants. And if you understand that fundamentally, I think life gets easier.
Thank you so much, Devdutt, for giving us your time and sharing your views. Thank you.